This is going to be an interesting video today. If you're a parent, please listen up. This is for you. Absolutely. This is for help in dealing with some of life's toughest conversations and what to do about it. Now, I work in a realm that is so politically incorrect that it can only be mentioned in the most intimate of conversations. No, I'm not a politician. I don't have an OnlyFans either. How to respond if you catch your kid doing something that really kind of shocks you, or they confess to you that they're experiencing something that kind of freaks you out. As parents, we want to try to protect our children. We want good things for our children, and it will inevitably occur that at some point, our children are going to disappoint us. Sometimes in a minor way, sometimes catastrophically. How to respond if you find your kid exploring things. Well, most kids grow out of that. It's also a kind of a self-soothing experience. It's an exploratory, discovering sort of experience. It's also sometimes a self-soothing experience, which asks the question, what is he soothing from? What is it that he's missing that he's trying to soothe? It's usually some kind of emotional connection and validation from the parents, especially with regard to mom. I'm just telling what I observe in my clinical practice. Nearly all of the purity issues that men deal with have to do with trying to alleviate the mom wound. And even well-meaning moms can inflict this mom wound without even realizing it. For example, if a mom and her son are out in public, and every time an immodestly dressed woman walks by, the mom makes her son look down at his feet when in public, that's not okay. You're experiencing... A lot of the women that dress immodestly are pretty. They're beautiful. They were created by God. Their bodies were created by God. And so when you treat these little circumstances, these little events where they see an immodestly dressed woman, you see her walk by, you're basically teaching your son that beautiful women are off limits. And then you're imprinting not only off limits, pretty women are off limits. Kids are not going to interpret things the way that parents do or the way that parents intend it. It's going to bounce around their inside of their minds, and they very often get mixed signals, mixed messages, very confused, garbled up messages about those particular things. I have seen many, many, many times in my practice, and I work with all the uncomfortable situations, but I've seen many times in my practice the root causes of purity issues in young men, not just purity, but also identity issues. Seeing themselves as less than a male, not really a man. There's something weakened, something defective. I have seen many times that they experience that because the interaction with mom with regard to other women is one of shame. Either the girls are off limits or you're bad for looking at girls. That's the message they receive. There are two things at play, though. In both of those, mom is trying to get the son to do this so that mom feels more comfortable that the son isn't going to sin. In my 8 years and thousands of hours of doing this work with guys who have purity issues, I have never once found as a core contributor or a core cause, I've never seen as a root cause instances of going out in public and seeing immodestly dressed women, or going to the beach or the lake and seeing women in swimsuits as a core event. It's just not. It hasn't been. It never has been. It's like there's a protection there that interacting with women or being around women in life, it doesn't seem to hook. What really seems to hook is seeing the stuff on the internet and in movies. Kids especially getting a hold of electronic devices and going and searching online, and they find really awful stuff online. That sort of stuff, they experience a shock. There's a shocking experience of it. That's the stuff that hooks. That's the stuff at the core memory. That's the root cause of these particular issues. Or those are the first events that really stick with people, that underlie that. They're trying to figure it out. They're trying to relive it. But it's something that's really shocking, or that there's shame attached to, or that was really, really pleasurable, but it was not quite what you're supposed to do. Even before that event, though, there is a relationship with mom, which is mom is taking from the kid rather than giving to the kid. She's acting upon the kid, or she's having the kid act so that she feels better about her anxiety or her anger. And it's almost always anxiety and anger. She feels fearful, so she's going to make the kid do something so that she doesn't feel fearful. Or she has unresolved guilt over things that she's done in her past. Maybe where she made herself very sexualized, or she fell into when other men sexualized her and she gave into that. And so she feels guilt about that. But now she's parenting from that guilt perspective. And so she tells her young son, don't sexualize women, don't sexualize women, don't sexualize women. And then the son becomes of age where he starts having sexual feelings about women. And the message he's gotten his whole life is don't sexualize women. And so he treats those feelings as though they're bad, they're forbidden. And so he wipes them out, or he punishes himself for them. But there are still sexual feelings. So he says, okay, well, I was only told, and I've heard this out of the horse's mouth over and over and over again. They say, they always told me not to sexualize women, but they never told me not to sexualize men. So that must be okay. I'm not kidding you. I'm not making this stuff up. This is where I heard this. These clients are where I heard this. And then they figure out a little bit later, hey, this is not good. I'm stuck in this. But really, when you're out in public and you see an immodestly dressed woman, you can subtly move in a different direction. Subtly, where it's not even noticeable that you're moving because of her. You go, oh, wait, I forgot something on the shelf over here. And you go to a different place and you go pick up something off the shelf. Or, oh, yeah, I want to return this other thing. Or you just walk by her. And yeah, your kid sees her. But it's not a thing, in my clinical experience, it's not a thing that sticks with kids. Just moves on. You know, they move past it. But when you make it something that's very off limits, it's not apparent to the child's mind that this is something that's off limits or why it's off limits. It's not apparent. Well, wait a minute. When I was a baby, my mom nursed me and I saw her in her underwear or PJs. Sometimes I saw her coming out of the shower. That wasn't wrong, but this is wrong. I don't understand it. Or this girl looks really pretty. She looks really nice. She's got a smile on her face and she's in the swimsuit in the Walmart on the little, on the advertisements, on the display board. I can't figure out why that's wrong, is what the kid is thinking. Why is that wrong? I don't get it. Mom is really shameful, really making this out to be something that's very wrong, that I need to stay away from because it's going to be bad for my soul. But I can't figure out why. What is it? I don't understand. She looks like a nice girl. It's not a big, what's the deal? But I've never seen that become the cause of somebody's lust or somebody's purity issues. It's just not a thing. I have seen moms who have their boys look down every time that there is an immodestly dressed woman. I have seen that as being a huge cause of shame in a boy's life. And when he looks around and he sees that the other boys aren't made to do this, he starts to wonder, well, what's wrong with me? What's the problem with me that I have to look down at the ground or look at my shoes when a woman walks by, but these other boys don't? And they begin to believe that they are different, that there's something broken about them. So yeah, definitely don't do that. Definitely don't do that. You're connecting pretty women and shame. I know your mind is not thinking, well, I'm not demonizing the pretty woman. I'm condemning her clothing choices. But the kid is not picking up that message. It's too much. It's too severe. It's too much a reaction. There's a lot of shame wrapped up in it. And so when he's experiencing shame with you, that's going to carry on into his relationships with women. Subconsciously, he's going to be saying, one of two things. Either A, he's going to rebel against mom and go, I'm going to go get the women that mom said were totally off limits. I'm just going to go pick those on purpose to try to overcome that powerlessness of feeling that shame. I'm going to be very brazen in my selections of women. Or he's going to pick the women that mom would approve of, but they might not be good women for the son. Oh, this is the kind of woman that mom would approve of. This is the one. She's very sexually repressed. She's very sexually cold, maybe emotionally withdrawn, not emotionally connected. There's nothing about her that's sexual. That will placate mom. That will make mom happy. Neither of these two options is a good, healthy option, because both of them are from a place of trauma, of shame. The energy that you put into events where you see an immodestly dressed woman is the energy that your son will carry with him. So if you give no energy to it and act like, oh, okay, yeah, no big deal. It's no big deal. Hey, let's go get some ice cream. Hey, we got to go check out. Let's go to the car. And you might notice that he keeps looking at that woman. That's okay. Let him keep looking at that woman and move on. Yeah, she's pretty, huh? Okay. If you're a mom, I probably wouldn't say, hey, she's pretty, huh? I would just notice and move on. I wouldn't say anything about that. If you're a dad, you might do that. Yeah, hey, she's pretty. Hey, let's go. Don't, for the love of God and all that is holy, do not tease him about his tastes in women. That's a major source of shame as well, because then he clams up and he goes, I'm not ever talking to my dad about this again. I'm not ever talking to my mom about this again. I experienced shame and they did not show any kind of care about that. They did not seem to be aware that this bothers me. So I'm not going to converse with them about that at all. You don't want that either. You need to be a safe place for your kid. The big place where you ought to be very cautious is the internet and movies, television. Your kids should have zero access to the internet or to television or movies, because there are a bunch of sick people in the world that create a bunch of content that you're not seeing at Walmart. Like the content of, the poster board at Walmart that has a girl modeling a bikini is not the same kind of content as what you see in movies and television and on the internet. That stuff is very intentionally designed to arouse feelings in you. But the bikini she's just there standing there looking cute. There's no sexual connotation to it at all. It would be immodest, but there's no sexual connotation. It's not intended to make that happen. It doesn't have a sexual undertones to it. So, but television, movies, kids see scenes like that, and Hollywood is not careful about this. They just throw those scenes into the movies, boom, with absolutely no warning. It does that to shock you. And it's kind of like winning at a slot machine. You never know when it's going to show up. It just shows up out of the blue. And so when you watch a movie, you're like, ooh, I wonder if this scene's going to be in here. And that's something that's done automatically. You're not even necessarily thinking about it. Some people are thinking about it. Some people are not. But it happens, and it's both shocking to the mind and also titillating. It's a trick. Do you know at casinos, they actually have pumped in over the speakers the sound of slot machines winning so that your mind goes, ooh, somebody's winning. Ooh, somebody's winning. Ooh, somebody's winning. And it's happening at a random ratio so that it gets your mind into this winning and reward mindset. Same thing with the inappropriate material in movies. It just comes out of nowhere. It's exciting. Whoa, hey, what was that? It causes an emotional reaction in you. And it doesn't really seem to matter whether it's a shock emotion or an arousal sort of emotion. But they do it on purpose. So when that happens to kids, and they definitely don't have even the biological meat in their heads, the brain, the prefrontal cortex, to be able to process that properly. Like a 14-year-old seeing it is going to have a tremendously greater negative consequence to seeing that than somebody who's never seen it before in their entire lives and then sees it at 35 years old. But even in the 1960s, they did studies about this, and they found that even people who had never seen this kind of inappropriate material before, I think it was like 30% of the people who had never seen that kind of inappropriate material were then asked to go and view that and then report what they experienced. 30% of them reported that they felt shock, moral shock, psychological shock at seeing that kind of material. So that's a kind of material that and they'd never seen it before. So it is shocking even to 35-year-olds who've never seen that before. So, and yeah, it doesn't matter if it's the hardest stuff online or if it's something in an R-rated movie, that is going to have an effect on your kid. Also, movies that they've done studies and found out that kids who watch movies that have kissing scenes and watch a lot of movies that have kissing scenes, like the more kissing scenes they watch, the more likely they are to get involved in physical activity and relationships at a younger age. So if you watch a lot of movies with a lot of kissing scenes, your child is far more likely to engage in that sort of stuff, mimicking that behavior earlier in the relationships, earlier in life, than they would if they didn't actually watch that at all. It's because we basically imitate what we watch. And again, a child's mind, this prefrontal cortex responsible for moral judgment, is not finished developing until you're 25 years old. So that's something to be aware of. Really guard what they watch on television, definitely the internet, definitely the movies. We don't even have streaming services, so my kids couldn't access it if they wanted to. We have a DVD player. We have DVDs that I specifically chose for them to watch because they have good values and they don't have any of that kind of inappropriate material. I don't even own inappropriate material, like movies with inappropriate material in it, because if one day one of them got curious and decided, hey, I wonder what this DVD is like, they're not going to find anything inappropriate in those movies. I threw them all away. They're gone. There's nothing in there they can get curious about and stumble upon. Because a lot of kids get curious and they stumble upon and they see things that they really weren't supposed to see, that was not good for them, and they end up with real long-term problems. And so we go back and we work on those problems. We can remove those emotional charges. We can remove the shock. We can move the arousal experience, the emotional charge to it, and then it's left in the past and their problem is pretty much gone. Once we go through all of the different scenarios that exist with an emotional charge to it. And so if your kid saw like 10,000 inappropriate images, we don't have to do this exercise 10,000 times. It's usually with the specific emotional charges that are embedded in that. It's kind of a long story, but anyways, short is, if your kid's seen 2,000, 10,000, however many thousand images or videos of inappropriate content, we do not have to go through those exercises 2,000, 10,000, however many thousand times in order to get him free of those things. There are some other components to it, but yeah, it doesn't take that long. I mean, there was a guy who's had a 30 or 40 year addiction to inappropriate material, and it was, 6 or 7 weeks, and he was done. Some people it takes a year. Some people it takes 2 years. It just depends on what's going on in their lives, their particular motivation, their IQ, and you don't have to have the highest of high IQs in order to get through this well. Well, this guy's pretty smart. I wouldn't say he's like top 1%. I'm not even close to top 1%, so don't ask me. All right. That's what you should be watching out for. When and how should a parent begin talking to their child about stuff online? Man, the longer you can delay that, the better. Like, there's this desire to kind of protect your kids from all the things, and so you tell them about it in advance. But in doing that, you also kind of destroy their innocence. You got a kid, you have sons, and it destroys their innocence. You can kind of try to gauge instead their emotional and psychological and relational health. Like, just kind of pay attention. Oh, your kid was a happy-go-lucky, and then suddenly one day he's not quite so happy-go-lucky anymore, and he's kind of secretive about his time over at, so-and-so's house, and he goes over there a lot, but he doesn't really tell you much about it at all. They're pretty quiet, and you ask about it, and Maybe there's nobody home. Maybe they just spent time and you're like, he's not really being very open about what they did today. And then you call the parents because you should be friends with your kids' parents. And you call their parents and go, hey, how are things going between your kid and my kid? Oh, they're good. Yeah, what do they do while they're over there? Oh, they're just playing in the bedroom. That should kind of prompt a little bit. The parents not really telling you what's going on because they don't really know. They're not paying that much attention. Also, the kids are playing in the bedroom. Well, what are they doing? Oh, they have an iPad. They're just watching movies. Ding, children with electronic devices in a bedroom and parents aren't paying attention. Automatic red flag. Yeah, I really don't want my kid doing that. I don't want them in there. When he comes over, I don't want them in there playing on the electronic device. And if they have a fit about it, if they get upset about it, whatever, that's not really a person that your kid should be hanging out with. Or maybe you have that kid over to your house where you can monitor it, but their parents are not trustworthy if they're going, oh, it's okay. Oh, they're fine. They're in there. They're good kids. They're not going to do anything like that. Don't trust it. Have their kid over to your house. Yes, you're going to have to put more effort into it. Yes, it's not free babysitting anymore. Put more effort into it. Maybe you can not only keep your kid a little safer from parents that are not really paying that much attention to them and don't really think that having an electronic device in a bedroom as a child is a problem. You're saving your kid from that, but you're also being a good influence on their kid. Hey, Mr. Seba, can we play with the iPad in the bedroom? No, you can't do that. But I've got 15 other things you can do instead. Y'all can play out here. You can do this out here. Y'all can listen to this podcast out here, but you got to do it at the table. You can't do it. You can't take the electronic device in the bedroom. And then if he keeps pushing, you go, you know what? It'd be good if you came back another day. We're not going to argue about it. That's not what we do at our house. Most kids aren't going to push you like that. But you got to protect your kids. Oh, I don't want him he'll have no friends if we don't do that. That's not true. Stop worrying about it. See, that's about your fear. That's about your anxiety. You can't let that affect your decisions about your kid. Fear of feeling left out. Well, okay, I'll let him go over to his friend's house so he's not left out, but he might end up with a, addiction. Inappropriate material addiction. So I would say prolong that as long as you can. Prolong that innocence as long as you can. There are no extra points for learning about it early. If your kid doesn't know that exists, fantastic. That'd be great if they don't know that it exists until he's 30 or until he gets to college. So trying to get ahead of it and warn him about it, I wouldn't do that. The pornography and the masturbation, those are symptoms of another problem. Like if your kid gets exposed to it and he doesn't have a particularly good relationship with mom because mom has a lot of anxiety or a lot of anger, or she's not emotionally attuned to him, she invalidates him when he's telling her about things in his life, or she just gives him solutions all the time instead of recognizing his emotions and going, man, that sounds like a hard time. Would you like a hug? If you're in a relationship with your son where you are using him for your emotional validation and emotional needs rather than you making your focus to fulfill his emotional needs and emotionally validate him, if you're using him for your emotional validation, he is likely going to have that problem. Sooner or later, he's going to have a problem with purity. If you are looking to fulfill his emotional needs, then he is far less likely to have those problems with pornography and masturbation. If your home is particularly stressful, if your relationship with your spouse or with your kids is particularly stressful, it is more likely that he's going to go into the bathroom, or even your daughter go into the bathroom and do things that we just talked about. Because there's a self-soothing aspect to it. Dads should be talking to sons about it, not moms. Moms should not be talking to sons about it. Dads should be talking about it. If you know that your kid is struggling with it, don't just bring it up in random conversations, because then your son starts wondering, okay, well, that just came up at random last time. Is he going to come up at random again? And so every time he's with you, he's going to wonder, is this conversation going to come up? I feel a lot of shame about this conversation, and it's random when it shows up. I don't know when it's going to come up. So I feel uncomfortable with dad. Maybe you can set a specific time each week when you talk about it. Maybe you can tell your kid, hey, please come talk to me if you ever have these issues. If you feel tempted, if you feel whatever, I'm here. I'm your wingman. Let's go. I'll help you out. It's going to be all right. You're going to be okay. And you let the kid initiate it, but please do not bring this stuff up just out of the blue like that. If you're having a good time camping or at the lake or whatever, and you go, hey, can I ask you about purity? He was just having a great time, and you just brought up something that had to do with shame. Congratulations. How'd that go? You ruined a good moment. So he's going to anticipate that anytime that y'all are having one of these good moments, that a topic of shame is going to be brought up. So set out some guidelines, some rules about your relationship, about how you're going to communicate on that particular topic, and then follow those. But don't do it at random. Don't do it because the thought popped into your head. Don't do it because you're a little bit anxious about it or because you haven't talked about it in a while and you want to check in and make sure he's okay. Yeah, fair enough. I want to make sure he's okay too. That would be great if we could make sure that our kids are okay. But each time that it's brought up, he's going to experience shame. And so you really don't want to be withdrawing from that bank account very often, if at all. What should you do if dad doesn't have those conversations? If dad is not having those conversations, mom should go and sweetly suggest, request, whatever, that dad have those conversations. If dad is not having those, if dad is still refusing to have those conversations with his son, for one, ask him, do you have any thoughts about when that's going to happen? Like, a mom is not a place to judge when it's appropriate for those conversations to happen. You do have to rely on the dad's judgment in as much as he has good judgment. You have to rely on his judgment of when is the right time to talk about those things. So for now, maybe it's a matter of just planting seeds. You don't want to step outside of that natural order of things and go, well, my husband's not doing it when I think he should be doing it, so I'm going to go somewhere else and get somebody else to do it. I wouldn't do that. Because you're stepping outside of the natural order. You're just disagreeing with his judgment about when it should happen, and you're using your own judgment. That's outside of right order. Now, if he's absent, like not in the home, then you might find an uncle or a priest or his grandfather, somebody that can talk to him about that and go, hey, do you think you can maybe have this conversation with him about this? That would be important. If the dad's not in the home at all anyways, you really want to be having some man from somewhere else. Maybe it's a coach, maybe it's a karate coach, baseball coach, soccer coach, swimming coach. Maybe it's an uncle. Find some man who's going to be a good mentor for him. And it's not just any man is going to be a good mentor, but find one that has a good character. And as much as you can, try to find one that really takes after your son, but who is not trying to get your son alone. You know what I mean? But try to find a man who can take your son under his wing, with you involved, with you there, with you where it's visible, healthy boundaries and all that, to kind of mentor your son. But it's not the end of the world if your kid doesn't have that conversation in his life. It'd be good if dad had that conversation with a kid, but it's not the end of the world, because a lot of kids already hear about that at school, on the playground, wherever, at church, with their buddies. They start kind of talking about a little bit, maybe a little bit about girls, a little bit about campouts. But, a young man who never hears about how to do any of those things, the talk, he's not going to get married and then go, well, what do we do now? He knows what to do now. He's going to be okay. But it's the long-term relationship with the dad that's really going to be an issue. Or that's not going to be an issue. It's a long-term relationship with the dad that's really going to be helpful in helping craft his identity. Something that is a big pitfall for a lot of moms is this. You have dad, you have oldest son, who's sometimes the firstborn child, but not always. You have an oldest son, and oftentimes dad and oldest son have a very similar personality. They both like sports, because when the son is born, dad's pouring everything into that son. And he's like, yeah, it's my firstborn son. Okay, my buddy, my pal. He's like me. I'm going to mentor him in being like me. And then a second son comes, and dad's like, I already got one of these. I mean, yeah, he can tag along. But then mom feels sorry for the son, and she goes, that's okay. You can come be with me. That's catastrophic, because that son that's now taken on by mom sees himself as something different than dad and brother. Well, how come brother gets to go with dad? How come he gets all that masculine energy and I have to stay in with mom like it's a consolation prize? That's very often talking with the client, with the sons, and also with the parents. It is about mom's anxiety. Mom's, oh, I feel sorry for him, that she intervenes, and that really poisons the well in this kid with regard to masculinity. He sees himself as defective, as faulty. Let him tag along with his dad and his brother and do it badly and be, lagging behind and struggling, but let him do that. And yes, your feelings of, oh, I feel so sorry for him. That's your stuff. That's not his. That's yours to fix in you. You have to fix that in you. What you're doing is you're taking him under your wing so that you feel better. Don't do that. Another example of this is when there are twins and the parents agree, okay, that twin's going to be mine and this twin's going to be yours, and we'll just raise them like that. There's a reason they turn out severely differently. And you have the one really masculine twin and you have the other one who's not so much. It's because boys need a man pouring masculinity, recognizing their masculinity and affirming that and saying, yeah, hey, good job. Even if he's not doing a great job, and even if dad's not giving it that often, it's still recognizing and saying, yeah, well, no, you're coming with us. You're a boy. You're coming with me and your older brother, or me and your twin brother. Yeah, come on. I know you suck at soccer. That's okay. Come on. You're coming with us. Come on, man. Yeah, he might not be as athletic. Yeah, he might be more artistic and musical, but don't take him from his dad and his brother. He needs men to be around. He needs boys. He needs masculinity to be around. And so the mom taking the boy and saying, oh, okay, I'll take you. I'll raise you. You're teaching him how to be a girl. And so his identity becomes broken, and because he doesn't recognize himself how to be a man. He doesn't recognize himself as a boy. He doesn't recognize himself as a man. You're breaking that boy. A woman can't teach a boy how to be a man. She can put him in situations where he is able to ascend to manhood, and she can kind of recognize that, but he's not going to receive masculinity from her. She wasn't created with it. And a masculine woman is a broken woman. So you have these women who are the rock climbers and the military women and all the rest. They're very masculine, but they're confused. They're broken. Like if women are masculine, then who pours that feminine loving care into children that they need from a woman? Nobody does. Nobody does. They're just getting it from a broken woman. Women who are trying to be like men, women who are aspiring to be like men, but it's a caricature. It's not rightly ordered. It doesn't work. It's contrary to what a woman was created to be. It's contrary to her gift, to her charism, to that grace that God has bestowed on her. Women were created for bringing life into the world, not for killing. You know, what happens when a woman goes to... when she goes and works out too hard, her cycle gets interrupted. Oftentimes it just stops altogether. That's not healthy. That's the body saying, hey, no, you weren't designed to do this. So we're kind of shutting down that part of your body, your reproductive system, because you weren't really designed to do this at all. This is bad for you. And when they go out into war, I read a story about this in Ukraine, when these women are going out to the battlefield and they're not getting clean, they're getting severe yeast infections. Men don't experience that when we don't shave. We might get the monkey arm, It itches. But we're not but we're not getting yeast infections. We're better built for that type of environment and work than women are. Our reproductive cycle doesn't get broken or doesn't stop when we're doing that kind of hard labor. Those long physical or physically challenging athletic events or war or battle, all the other things. So trying to be a man, so a woman can't pour that into a boy. He's not connecting with masculinity in her. Even the masculine woman, he's not connecting with masculine energy, masculinity in her, because it's not. It's mimicry.